This is the module entitled Disability Culture. I'm Laura Van Pembroke and one of the authors of this module. I'm going to offer a description of myself. Visual descriptions are often done in disability communities as a way to provide information about the speaker for people who are blind who have low vision. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman in my mid-60s with blondish shoulder-length hair. I'm wearing a black top and my background is blurred. This module's development was a collaboration with the Occupational Therapy and Disability Studies Network. This group's mission is to create and disseminate knowledge, integrating contributions from disability studies into the field of occupational therapy. This module reflects our professional experiences as occupational therapists and disability studies scholars, as well as is informed by our collective research and connections with the disability community. The material presented here is intended to provoke thought and considerations by occupational therapy students, educators, and practitioners, and is not exhaustive of all possible perspective. In this module, it's important to acknowledge that the word disability has different meanings across diverse cultures, just as the word culture does. The concept of a disability culture is a fairly recent one. If we consider all of the possibilities of all disabilities and all cultures, it is probably more accurate to say that there are cultures of disabilities. This presentation provides a brief introduction and encourages exploration of many cultural aspects of disability. There are 4 learning objectives for this module, and by the end of this session, you should be able to recognize features of the evolution of disability culture, identify 2 reasons why exploring disability culture as an OT is important, identify 3 approaches to infusing disability culture into practice or curricula, and identify 3 disabled artists or disability culture organizations. This quote is a comprehensive description of disability culture by Dr. Carol Gill. We are using it to honor Dr. Carol Gill's life as a disability scholar, advocate, mentor, and member of the disability community. She says, the elements of our culture include certainly our long-standing social oppression, but also our emerging art and humor, our piecing together of our history, our evolving language and symbols, our remarkable unified worldview, beliefs, and values, and our strategies for surviving and thriving. Disability culture is comprised of many artifacts documenting the common history and ongoing oppression of disabled people, but also, importantly, the bond of resilience of disabled people. Disability culture also uses the arts to highlight social and political issues and change the way that society thinks about disability. Disability culture also shows that disability is more than a medical condition. It's a community, a history, a way of life. Importantly, disability culture acknowledges and establishes that living with disability is a way of life. In the evolution of disability culture, the history of disabled people has had an important role to play, including the activism movements that work to challenge dominant social stereotypes of disability and acknowledge the shared group experience of disabled people. Although political activism was at the forefront of this movement, disability art and culture were also important ways to expose the shared experiences of negative stereotypes, prejudices, and the oppression of disabled people. This visibility helped to change societal perceptions of disability from something that is bad and sad, something in need of cure, to something that is valued and resilience. It fueled embrace of disability as part of personal identity and pride in being part of the disability community, generating group strength and also a distinct group culture. The common traits and experiences shared by this group have been revealed through the work of diverse artists from across cultural forms of expression. We will share some of the contemporary artists, but want to acknowledge the many people that have fueled the evolution of disability culture. Performance artists that represent early artists in the worldwide development of disability culture movement include Cheryl Marie Wade, The Wire, Crips, dancers like Bruce Curtis and the Axis Dance Troupe, writer and poet Leroy F. Moore Jr., and actor and playwright Neil Marcus. Today, disability culture is flourishing, highlighting living life with disability and pride in being a member of the disability community. Two individuals, Galen Lee and Lei Shi, are performers and advocates on their own, but together co-founded the Recording Artists and Music Professionals with Disabilities, or RAMPed. RAMPed is dedicated to promoting disability culture, connecting music, entertainment, and event industries to music professionals with disabilities. In their work, Galen and Lei Shi experienced the serious lack of visibility, access, and representation of professional disabled artists in the industry, and then co-created RAMPed to address these issues, as well as propagate the richness of disability culture. On this slide, there are images of Galen and Lei Shi. Galen is on the left. She identifies as a woman with a physical disability, with bent arms and legs, which cause her to have a shortened stature. She's a violinist, singer, songwriter who is passionate about disability education and awareness building. She holds her violin upright, like a tiny cello when she plays it, instead of on her shoulder. There are two links, one to her videos and the other to a link to her stream of music. On the right side of this slide is an image of Lei Shi wearing a brilliant pink dress and standing in front of a pink background holding her folded glamorous white cane. She is the USA Today 2024 Woman of the Year and is a blind singer-songwriter. She hosts the PBS documentary series Renegades, and there is a hyperlink to that on this slide, as well as a link to stream her on Spotify. On this slide are two images of dancers in wheelchairs in motion. These are dancers from Kinetic Light, founded by Alice Shepard, Laurel Lawson, and Michael Magg. These are the dancers in the images along with Jerome Herman. Kinetic Light, which is an internationally recognized artistic coalition created in collaboration with other disabled artists and dancers. Working in the disciplines of art, technology, design, and dance, Kinetic Light creates, performs, and teaches at the nexus of access, queerness, disability, dance, and race. Kinetic Light is led by disabled artists that create, design, and perform the work. Their work speaks to and emerges from disability aesthetics and disability culture, and it is connected to the rich traditions and exciting contemporary conversations of disabled artists in all artistic fields. On the slide, there is also a link to Kinetic Light's website, as well as their Instagram @wheelchairdancer, and dancer is DANCR. Leah Lakshmi Pepsna Samas and Sinha describes themselves on their website, browngirls.org, as a writer, older cousin, culture and memory worker, divinator, writer, teacher, space creator, low-tech survival technologist, and structural engineer of disability and transformative justice work. Telling a story is their primary form of tech. Their writing and performance art focuses on documenting the stories of queer and trans people of color, abuse survivors, mixed race people, and diasporic South Asians and Sri Lankans. A central concern of their work is the interconnection of systems of colonialism, abuse, and violence. They are also a writer and organizer within the disability justice movement. There are links to Leah's website, poems that include Body Map and Tongue Breaker, performances from Sins Invalid, and books they have authored such as Bridge of Flowers and The Future is Disabled, Prophecies, Love Notes, and Morning Songs. These are only the tip of an enormous iceberg of artists from across the disability culture landscape. Culture, in its sociological or anthropological definition, is the sum of experiences, thinking, and beliefs that one generation passes on to the next one. Culture is a vehicle, one of several, for development of one's identity, identification, and socialization. And these are examples of other platforms that you can explore to learn and experience the diversity of disability cultural experiences. These are hyperlinks to these different sites, bodies of work with their ongoing cultural events, Disability Cultural Activism Lab, which is a platform for creative disability projects. Crip Crap is a podcast at the crossroads of disability and anything including culture, politics, and more. And New Mobility Magazine is a magazine that is filled with information on all things related to wheeled mobility, including disability culture. So why is disability culture important to OT? Why are we doing this module? Having knowledge and exposure and appreciation of the messages streaming from the disability culture movement can empower OTs to recognize the power and impact disability culture can have on positive disability identity development. It provides occupational therapy practitioners to an opportunity to consider why traditional therapy often neglects to consider disability as a community. This provides a new lens for OT practitioners to critique ableist social political policies and practices. And disability culture challenges able-bodied normativity as the end goal of occupational therapy interventions. On this slide, there's an image of a person in a wheelchair next to a person standing holding onto their guide dog. In the middle of the image is a quote by Ed Roberts that says, "Our unity is our strength." Around the quote are traditional symbols of disability, including a wheelchair symbol, fingers signing, a person walking with a cane, and more. We hope to challenge occupational therapy practitioners to explore disability culture when working with clients. To do this effectively requires OT practitioners to embrace a stance of disability cultural humility. What does this mean? This means that we must recognize one's knowledge and understanding of disability will always be partial, and reflect upon and act in light of this fact with your clients. It also means recognizing and addressing power imbalances and systemic oppression, critically reflecting on our own beliefs and practices, and working for changes to institutions, policies, and systems to make them more just. A great description of cultural humility comes from Yeager and Bowerwoo from 2013. It says, cultural humility is a personal, lifelong commitment to self-evaluation and self-critique, whereby the individual not only learns about another's culture, but one starts with an examination of his or her or their own beliefs and cultural identities that allows one to recognize those power dynamics and imbalances, developing a desire to fix those power imbalances and to develop partnerships with people and groups who advocate for others' institutional accountability. In the next slide, we will provide a few examples of cultural humility in action. This slide provides only some examples that can be used by OT educators and OT practitioners. Within OT education, OT educators can critically examine disability representation, including ableism, and across case studies, or in language that's being used, for example, using wheelchair-bound, crazy, patient versus client. OT educators can examine how disability is simulated by actors without disabilities, or asking students to use a wheelchair for a day, and how these perpetuate stereotypes and prejudices. OT educators can provide opportunities to spotlight disability advocates, historical figures, artists, and lived experiences of living a full life with disability. OT educators can provide opportunities to reduce emphasis on the medical model of disability and achieve the goal of achieving norms as end goals of therapy, and increase the focus instead on achieving goals of engagement, goals of participation in society, and occupational justice. And OT educators can provide opportunities to increase representation of positive disability identity throughout all of the curricula. In interventions with clients, in the interventions with clients, OTs can use disability affirming approaches to recognize the authority of disabled people as the expert of living life with disability, and consider the value and power of using peer mentors and peer groups in your interventions. Explore disability in a social context outside of the clinic with the clients that you're working with. Include communication with and about disability culture, living life with disability into the conversations you have with clients. Engage in disability culture and advocacy outside of practice to learn about the disability community's concerns, their goals, and their issues. Expose positive disability representation and eliminate disability stereotypes from the clinic you work in, such as eliminating inspiration porn phrases or posters such as, quote, "If you only try hard enough, you can overcome disability," unquote. And ensure you know about disability rights and resources to exercise those rights, and expose and educate your clients to these. So, key takeaways from this module. What are yours? Thinking about it, what are the things that you take away from this presentation? A few that may come to mind is that the disability community is diverse, but share many common experiences, primarily of exclusion and oppression. Disability culture can be a powerful mechanism to support a positive embrace of disability identity development. And OT practitioners must acknowledge the limitations of their expertise of living life with disability and explore disability culture to learn more and expose clients to this rich community. These are some references to explore. Thank you for spending time learning about disability culture.